Let's start by talking about releases, about departures. Let me see here. Let's pull up the list. I know the list is on this article here. Ignore the article for now. But the full list of people, if we start, let's start with WWE. The list of people that have been that are gone, that have been moved to the alumni section on WWE.com are Cedric Alexander, Sonya Deville, the Authors of Pain, Paul Ellering, Blair Davenport, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Isla Dawn, and Elektra Lopez. So all these people were all released, I believe, like most of them, I should say, were released on Friday. A couple of stragglers, I believe, or at least were announced over the weekend, but it was towards the end of last week, which is interesting because last week on the stream we talked about Duke Hudson getting released, and apparently he had been released since January. Ah, yes, and Giovanni Vinci. That's right. It's nonetheless a pretty exhaustive list of people who have departed. And we did mention, yeah, okay, we mentioned everyone. I think the list was pretty thorough, except for Giovanni Vinci. Yeah, that's the only one that was maybe. Oh, look, it doesn't matter. It's fine. I think this is something that we're going to be seeing a little more about. That we're going to see a little more of as things continue to progress with WWE. Look, we've already seen it happen, right? And we're going to see this more and more is what I'm trying to say. We're probably going to see this a couple of times a year, maybe coinciding with, quarters or whatever, maybe twice a year, where out of nowhere, they're just going to cut people because they've got so many people in their pipeline right now that they're just going to get, they're just going to get rid of the talents that they have truly nothing for, or that they have no interest in. And the same goes for the people in NXT, where it's like, between the NIL program, between the NIL program, the WWE ID program, and just picking up people off the indies or whatever, they've got a really strong influx of talent where it's like, if you don't stand apart, if you don't come across as someone that they can use or that they are interested in using, you're going to get cut. You're going to get flushed, and no one's going to bat an eye. I think, all of these, and I want everyone to make sure that I want to make sure that I measure what I'm saying here. I want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm not trying to sound callous when I say all of these releases make sense. There's maybe one in here that is a little weird, that I don't quite understand, but all of them make sense. And not in the sense that they're untalented, that they stink, nothing like that. These are people, a lot of these talents, a lot of these releases make sense because WWE wasn't doing anything with them regardless. So there's a lot of them where it's just like, well, okay, they're cutting losses. They're just saying, look, in the near immediate future, we do not require your services. Hit the bricks. That makes sense to do, right? It's not as surprising. I don't think there's anyone as surprising as a Baron Corbin, though. Whereas Corbin, I think everyone was sort of shocked because everyone fully expected that guy to have a job for life in WWE, that he would 100% be a lifer, right? But it's not the case. It's not the case. And I think that it's an interesting message to be sent that even if you're a mid-carder and your uses have been limited, despite the fact of you having been used a lot, everyone's sort of put on notice. I think that, in retrospect, when you think about it, WWE firing Baron Corbin is a message to say no one is safe here. No one has a cushy job for life. This is not Vince's WWE anymore, where it's like, yeah, I'll take care of you kind of thing. It's just something completely foreign, completely different. So again, like not to sound completely callous, it's like they make sense. Okay. These releases all kind of make sense. And again, like I said, they're part of this talent strategy that WWE has right now, where they want to be able to, rotate people in and out of the company. They have such a strong pipeline of talent. They'll never be want for developmental talent or just ready to go talent. They'll never be on. They never will be. So it's just a question of, well, how much money can we put in this, right? So let's talk about these. I guess we'll go over each one individually. Cedric Alexander announced that he was no longer with the WWE. He announced this on February 7. In a social media post Friday, the former WWE Cruiserweight Classic standout and former Cruiserweight champion himself revealed that he was no longer with the company and will be free to work elsewhere in 90 days. The 90-day reference indicates that this was a release or a negotiated buyout and not a contract expiry. So Cedric was released, and he was always a fantastic wrestler, and he was one of the cornerstones of 205 Live. He was absolutely phenomenal. And I think he had a great spot in the Hurt business. When that was around, I think that was a tremendous pairing. Of course, that all came apart because reasons. And the look, I don't know, like they even tried their best, right? They tried their best to make something where they put him in a tag team with Tahuti Miles, right? And or whatever it's not Tahuti Miles. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's how I remember his name. And they never really did anything with that, did they? It just sort of meandered, right? So it's all kind of I think it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. I think Cedric is a tremendous talent and he's very, very good. I mean, I think he's got, he's still got some mileage. This guy's not out of the way yet, right? Sonya Deville was also released. Now, this is the one that I found a little weird. I found it a little weird because she was actually on TV. She's part of this faction with Shayna Baszler, and I'm like, isn't this interesting? Like, isn't this interesting? And was it? And then it was. Yeah, I think I saw on social media that she had been doing like promos, like going to TV and doing promotional work for WWE the day before being fired. Like, holy crap, man. And she's had a good career. Started in NXT, of course. And moved up to main roster, was paired up with Mandy Rose. They had their whole feud, if you remember that. And then there was the whole stalker incident, which took her off television for a while. She went, handled that case, and then made her return. She was GM of one of the brands. Was it SmackDown for a while? Or she was the villainous GM or assistant. I don't remember. Like that. She was always on TV. And she was in the midst of, she was getting some airtime. I don't know if you'd call it a push, but she was not, relegated to the back of the line by any means. So, again, not unlike Baron Corbin, where you're like, well, you could be Baron Corbin, but that doesn't mean you have a secure job here. That doesn't mean you got job safety here. And I think, again, that's a very interesting message that's being sent out there. AOP and Paul Ellering. Look, honestly, chat, help me out here. Have they even done anything? Did they even do anything with the time that they were back in the WWE? Like, as many of you know, I only watch the pay-per-views. I haven't seen them wrestle. And I don't think anyone has seen them wrestle since they returned, right? I know they were hanging out with Karrion Kross in the whatever stable name it was, right? And they were being assaulted by the Wyatt Six or whatever, you know. But AOP beat the spooky Wyatt Six. I mean, you know, the Authors of Pain. Here's the thing: is they stink. So, you know, it's maybe someone figured it out and was like, yeah, you know what, these guys, they're just no good. So maybe, you know, maybe they'll go back to Europe and they'll try to set up another, you know, another wrestling event like they did some time ago. Maybe they'll try their hand at promoting again. Sure, you know, it's whatever. Paul Ellering was the package deal. It's whatever. I don't know. I don't know who could. I don't know who could be upset about this, right? Blair Davenport also being released. Former B Priestley. Here's someone else I believe that didn't do much. Like she had been in the company for a while as well, but she was, you know, I don't see where she fit into this new NXT that they had set up. I didn't even see where she'd fit in on main roster, right? She was up on main roster. She had been called up. And that's another thing. You know, we're talking about, you know, just, you know, no one has a safe job here. A lot of look, it's like what happened to Dijak last time. You get called up, and the next thing you know, you're getting released. Like no one is ever safe. Why bother calling them up in the first place then? Why are you going to call them up if you don't have anything for them? And not only not have anything for them, but you're like, well, we're just going to send you home. Thank you. Future endeavors, etc., etc. Right? Just then, why call them up in the first place? Like that's stupid. You know, this is why, you know, it's another thing. Like this is something that would happen with Vince as well. Back in the day, you'd call someone up and then have nothing for them, right? But they'd be called up, but then have jack shit for them to do. So now it's kind of like the same thing here, where it's like you have Sonya Deville, not Sonya Deville, Blair Davenport, B Priestley. She gets called up, and we got nothing. So, you know, this company really hasn't changed all that much, if you ask me, in a lot of its processes. Anyway, so these people were released, but Sonya Deville's contract did run out, or is not being renewed, and she's going to be a free agent in a couple of weeks. Let's move on. We've got Isla Dawn here, who also confirmed that she's gone from the company. She appears to be finished. Adding to the recent wave of departures that included Sonya Deville, the Authors of Pain, Cedric Alexander, Paul Ellering, and Blair Davenport. Again, I've got nothing. I legitimately have nothing. I don't know what Isla Dawn brings to the table. I think she's a bang average wrestler. I'm not saying she stinks. I think the Authors of Pain stink. Does she stink? Nah, I think she's very fine. She's fine, you know. I really don't know what you do with her, you know. Outside of her being one of the token Scottish women to win the titles at the Castle Clash last year, or the year before. Well, yeah, it was in 2023, right? It was in 2023, right? The Clash will clash. The Clash will cash. Cash at the Classel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this is a woman, right, who has been with the company for like 9 years or something like that. She was in NXT UK, you know, scraping by, not doing much, not tearing the world on fire, actually not doing anything. And then comes to NXT, doesn't do much here either, and doesn't do much on main. Like, she'd just been cashing checks. Good for her, though. I don't know. She's all right. But I don't see, I don't know again, I don't have many thoughts. Like most of these releases, I'm like, okay, if you say so, that's fine. The Good Brothers and Giovanni Vinci were also released. Let's talk about Giovanni Vinci first, because again, this is this is one where you go through it pretty quickly. Vinci debuted in WWE as part of the 2016 Cruiserweight Classic and later formed a tag team with Marcel Bartel in 2017, who is Ludwig Kaiser, for those of you who are paying attention at home. The duo aligned with Walter and Ludwig Kaiser to form Imperium and captured the NXT Tag Team Championships twice. Vinci was removed from the group in April 2024 and had limited appearances on WWE programming forward. I still don't understand what the logic was. I don't know why they just didn't keep the group together. I really don't. I don't understand. I just don't understand why it became. But, WWE doesn't like stables. They don't like groups. Unless these groups are like at the center of the biggest storyline in the company. But, they just like wibble wobble and whatever. Look, I can't tell you that I'm very upset about this, but Fabian Eichner has, I've always liked him. I've always had a real soft spot for him. And I think he's a guy that has never really had an opportunity in all the years that he's been in WWE to show off what he's got. I don't think he's ever had an opportunity to do that. He was a power cruiserweight, big, strong guy. You could contest as to whether or not he actually did make the weight or not. We could have conversations about that, sure. But I liked him. I always had a soft spot for him. But again, this is a guy where you're like, well, singles run, really? I thought he was fine in Imperium. I don't know what the issue was. Could be stuff backstage. You never know. Now, the Good Brothers. Wait a minute. Do we know that? Okay, Vinci has been released. So again, another cut. So the Good Brothers were also cut from the company. Let's read the little blurb here. Anderson and Gallows had been with WWE since returning in June 2022. Their first stint lasted from 2016 until their release in April 2020. Gallows previously worked for WWE from 2005 to 2010 under gimmicks including an Imposter Kane, Festus, Biscuits and Gravy, and a member of CM Punk's Straight Edge Society before being released in November 2010. And then he went off to New Japan and had a wrestling match so bad that Antonio Inoki entered the ring, came into ringside, throwing chairs around, demanding the match be stopped, breaking kayfabe, and requiring that the match be stopped, which is funny. Look, the Good Brothers are another team where I'm like, I don't know, like what do these guys have to offer that is special in the year of our Lord 2025 in pro wrestling? And quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know what the Good Brothers have to give. I don't think they're interesting. I don't even think they're all that funny. I know a lot of people like, they like the hijinks. They think they're funny. I don't think they're that funny. No, I really don't think they're that funny. And medium effort Carl Anderson is very rough to watch. I've seen medium effort Carl Anderson in New Japan in younger years. And it's not that great. I don't see what, older these, now that they're older and whatnot, I don't know what they have to give. I really don't know what they have to give outside of these guys returning to New Japan and making Carl Anderson the leader of the Corpse of Bullet Club. Like that's a, because, I joke, but I think that New Japan will always welcome Carl Anderson back. I think they will always open their arms and bring him back because he substituted for, and I'm trying to remember the story, but it was like, I think Carl Anderson's out of Cleveland, right? And I think, and this is years ago, and he befriended some people who were working with New Japan while working the indies in Cleveland. And New Japan was in a pinch. And they were scrambling to find a guy, and they needed a gaijin. And like I think the story goes that someone said, well, this guy, Carl Anderson, super solid, let's bring him in. And so he flew to Japan to substitute for a match. And they were so impressed with him doing that and his attitude and his work that they kept bringing him back and, you know, made him a part of the Bullet Club story. And there's always been a great sense of loyalty because of that. As much from Anderson as from New Japan as well. So I would assume that if Anderson wanted to work New Japan, they'd welcome him back. Now, would they welcome him back with open arms and offer him a full-time gig? Excuse me. Probably not, because the economy is in the pits in New Japan, in Japan, period. And New Japan is not in a great spot financially. Wrestlers are taking pay cuts. So I'm not sure they'd be able to like afford him full time. But if you wanted to work some dates, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to accommodate, right? I mean, for a tour or whatever. I'm sure I'm convinced that would be all right. But yeah, I mean, that, you know, that's kind of a thing that we have that could happen. But I mean, I think Luke Gallows, but we're talking about Carl Anderson, right? Because I think Carl Anderson still has mileage, despite the fact that I don't understand personally, I don't know what the Good Brothers have to bring to the table. I think Carl Anderson still has some gas, but I don't want to see Carl Anderson in a singles run, particularly in New Japan anymore. This new fresh-faced New Japan, we don't need Carl Anderson. We don't want Carl. I don't want Carl Anderson. That's fine. Luke Gallows is done. He's toast. Like that guy is broken down. We'll never remember Luke Gallows for his work rate to begin with. So we're not going to pretend that these later years are suddenly revelatory and he's become some kind of super worker, because he's not. Okay, we're not going to pretend. So I'm not necessarily enthralled at the idea of, you know, Luke Gallows being out there again, because at this point, you know that Carl Anderson is always going to negotiate with his boy in mind. Well, if I come, my boy comes with me. That's just, they're joined at the hip. That's how it goes. And I understand that. And I respect that as well. Don't get me wrong. That kind of loyalty, that's tremendous. I don't want to see Luke Gallows wrestle anymore. It's fine. Now, I don't see anyone in WWE, you know, none of the fans, I don't see anyone shedding any tears. That's fine. We're good. That's fine. And we're good. Elektra Lopez was released as well. I mean, I think we had all sort of seen that she was a look. And that was it. And, you know, they gave her, how long had she been there? Elektra Lopez. How long had she been? Yo! Look at this rating. 3.21. Jesus. This is and this is from the WWE fans, right? Who are like the easiest to please of all time. And you know what? Look, I'm going to give a little bit of a grace period. We're not going to do a cage match dumpster dive. Not so soon after being released from her job. And I'm sure like it probably sucks, right? So, you know, I'm not gonna twist the knife here. We're not gonna do this on purpose. Look, I mean, look, this woman's she's been in the business since 2017, right? In the WWE system since 2021. She's been there for 4 years, 5 maybe. She didn't wrestle at all in 2025 before her departure. So, you know, it's like, if she's not getting better, then yeah, you have to cut loose. You have to cut bait at some point, right? And, you know, I think 4 years for a developmental talent is a pretty good indicator as to whether or not they got it or not, right? I think that's a good cutoff point, as opposed to waiting 7 years like they fucking did with Indy Hartwell, right? Wasn't it something like that? It's like 7 years or something like that. Listen, I got nothing. I've got nothing. She was a look, but she never came across. She's not a good wrestler. Okay, just simple as that. Not a good wrestler. Never improved in the 4 years she was there. So what's the use? What's the point, right? What's the point? You don't keep that hanging around. It didn't work out for her. She was the forgotten one in the forgotten one that trained in the same group as Deanna and Wendy Chu. Oh, so she was part of that class. Wendy Chu. There's another one who's got to be worried for her spot, right? Here's the thing, though. If we X out of the cage match, here's the thing, though, about the WWE releases here, because now, you know, the question that comes to everyone's mind, that everyone gets really, really excited about, is, okay, now where are they going? What are their next steps? Will they go to AEW? Will they go to TNA? And I see a lot of people making some compelling cases for guys like Cedric Alexander going to AEW, or, you know, Fabian Eichner going to AEW as well, right? People going to, you know, we saw it a little earlier, right? Like the Good Brothers would be great in TNA, right? TNA, which is, you know, pretty much, you know, it's an appendage of WWE now. So it makes me wonder, like, for the TNA stuff, it's like, oh yeah, Sonja'd be great in TNA, but I'm like, the WWE and TNA have the talent exchanges, right? So is this possible? And if so, is this, look, again, this is, maybe it's a little conspiratorial, but is this just a way for WWE to offload some talent, and then TNA going, oh, this is interesting, and they pick up Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows and you know, and Sonya Deville maybe at a discount, because you know they're not getting their WWE rate, and then WWE can still use them once in a while, but all the costs have been offset, right? Now you can have, like, you know, it's not unlike you know, what's her name, Ash by Elegance, Dana Brooke. You know, if WWE ever wanted to use her again, which they did, they brought her on NXT last year. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, the former Dana Brooke, but we're not paying for her anymore, so it's fine. You know, they just bring her in, have her do her little stint. She collects her salary, right? You know, I mean, that would be a thing if you ask me. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, send Da Vinci, Fabian Eichner to TNA. And don't you think that would be weird? That would be so weird. But then again, I'm sure some WWE fans would be like, oh, it's fine. Look, we're all in the same family. They stay in the WWE family, right? Because TNA is part of the WWE family. WWE told us that it was okay. WWE told us it was okay to like them. So it's fine. Don't worry about it. You know, that makes me, it's so strange to me, this relationship. So it's like going to TNA might be just something very strategic, where it's like they stay in the same family. WWE still has the opportunity to use them when they want, and if they don't want, but whatever, they're not paying, right? They're not paying for it. So it's cool. It's chill. Don't worry about it. You know, Zachary Wentz You know, we can use him as much as we like. You know, he can come on NXT with the X Division title and everyone will think it'll be super cool, but he can still stay away because we don't want to pay for him because, we got a lot of flippy guys already. Plus, he did the Hitler mustache thing, and yeah. I mean, we don't really mind, but people out there kind of mind. People out there don't like this Hitler fella, What? What do I think? Oh, you have to ask me at a press conference. Yeah, you have to ask me at a post-show press conference. You have to get your question in. I don't know if you'll get your question in, but if you get your question in, you can ask me my thoughts about Hitler. I don't quite see, or at least if TNA does pick up some of these people, I'm going to find it weird. I'm just going to find it weird. I'm going to find it weird. Now, as it pertains to bringing these people over to AEW, all right, I have two thoughts on this. Thought number one, there's no one that has been released here. No one that requires Tony Khan to sit down, scratch his beard or his 5 o'clock shadow and say, I wonder if I should open up the checkbook for X. There's no one here who is interesting enough to make that for him to do that, I believe. Okay. The second thing is that I don't think Tony Khan should be bringing in any more people from WWE for a while, unless it is someone that you just cannot pass up. Unless, John Cena on his last year with WWE gets into a fight with Triple H and he gets fired. Something you cannot pass up. All right? Something that you'd be like, okay, this is bonkers. CM Punk wants to come back. No, I don't even think CM Punk should be back in that locker room. Roman Reigns, something to that on that level. Other than that, leave everyone away. Because right now, if Tony and the AEW crew are listening to the fan base and have their ear to the ground, they are hearing that what AEW fans want is their people pushed. They want their people at the front line, and they want the young guys that were brought up in AEW to get pushes, to be featured more, to be on TV more. So if you bring in a guy like Cedric Alexander, who is a super talented pro wrestler, don't get me wrong, right? And you're like, well, why don't we bring him in? It'd be tremendous, right? Why not Cedric Alexander? That'd be amazing, right? I'm like, hang on a second. Cedric is amazing. I think he's a good talent, very good talent on top of that. But who loses his spot to Cedric? Who then do you decide to take off television and make room for this guy? Same goes with Fabian Eichner, who I really like. The same goes with him. You bring him in, you're like, you kick the tires, you see how it goes. Give him a little contract. Okay, who are we taking off TV? Daniel Garcia? I don't want Garcia off of TV. Mark Briscoe? Who are you taking off TV? Who are you taking off TV? Did you have we were about to push the Martins again, Top Flight, but we brought in Fabian Eichner. We got to go do something else now. Dude, no. You see what I mean? The issue right now, one of the main issues that exists in AEW right now is that the guys that Tony is bringing in are taking out spots from people that the AEW fan base actually want to see. Truly and sincerely want to see. I think that's a big crux of the issue. And you're starting to hear the grumblings, right? You're starting to hear the grumblings of, TNA bringing in the former WWE cast-offs, right? It's not as bad as that. Again, like, I think people, it's like the WCW. People immediately, when it comes to AEW doing making bad decisions, they will refer to the worst moments of a promotion to make a comparison when what's going on in AEW right now is not even remotely as bad as the comparison they're trying to make. You know, when people would say, oh, this is exactly like WCW 2000, like, no, it's not. No, it's not. AEW has had its moments, especially during the Brochachos, where it wasn't great, but it was never, ever as bad as WCW 2K. Trust me, that's proof that people didn't watch it. So when people are saying right now, AEW is turning into TNA, too many WWE guys, I'm like, thank you for sounding the alarm, just raising the attention. Hey, yoo-hoo, maybe it's getting a little dicey. Maybe you should start, being careful of what you do. But we're not even close. We're not even close to the worst of TNA going off and bringing everyone in from WWE who was released, who's, got out of their contract or whatever. We're not even close to that. So just because we've got Jon Moxley, who I can't even, in my mind, I can't even consider Jon Moxley to be a former WWE guy. This guy has given everything to AEW. If there was ever a guy that I consider an OG, and that I think everyone else does, and has completely forgotten that this guy used to have a WWE identity, it's Jon Moxley. This guy, gave himself heart and soul to this company. He was the MVP of this company for an entire year while things were crumbling all around him. It was break glass, call in Jon Moxley. So I can't even, but let's say you did want to see it through that lens. And then you bring in, you put Adam Copeland at the top, who is still very much a WWE guy. FTR, who maybe you could say still have that, that part of, I don't know how far you want to go. Claudio, Pac, again, like, these are, you might be stretching it when it comes to Pac being a WWE guy. It's like, you can look at that, like, objectively. You can look at that, step back and like, hey, I know all of these guys from WWE. What are they doing in AEW? True. Like, there's only Wheeler Yuta really in that feud where you're like, oh, who's this guy? Right? And Ricochet's in a big spot and so on and so forth. We're not even close to being as bad as TNA was. And you have to believe me on this, right? We're not even remotely close. But when you get to, but nonetheless, the idea of bringing WWE guys in, like Bobby Lashley, like, it's not that there haven't been people from WWE brought in. But I think you have to be careful. You have to be careful because, again, you bring in these people, you're going to want to put them on TV. So then who loses their spot? Who then will not be featured prominently if these guys are brought in and given the spots? And that's what you have to think about as a fan of AEW, for instance. That's what you think about. Like, there is no one here that I would want to see come in and take the spot of a Daniel Garcia or Hook or, name an Orange Cassidy, name your preferred wrestler of choice. No one. I don't want anyone of these people coming in to do that because none of them are worth it. None of them are worth the return. And on top of that, when you consider that they've brought in some WWE guys who were extremely unsatisfied with their spot, who probably thought that they were going to be treated like royalty because they came from the big place and they were a true superstar. And they come in and wait, I have to build my rep here. Hang on a second. I'm so-and-so. I deserve better here. Your creative pitches, they don't work for me, brother. So what do? They sit in the locker room and stew, or they sit at home and stew, and just create a cloud, a dark cloud within your locker room. And is this what you want? Is this what you want to continue to add? You got rid of the biggest cloud in your company, what, 2 years ago at this point? Or was it just last year? When did CM Punk leave? Oh God, the timelines. They're all so confusing to me. Yeah, 2 years ago he got rid of him, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay. In 2023. He got rid of the darkest cloud. And now there's a couple of more dark clouds who are gone. Malachi Black, Miro. He got rid of Andrade. That was another one too, right? Who thought that, he wasn't well respected, well taken care of. Got rid of all those little dark clouds. What do they all have in common? Well, they all came in because Vince fired them. Because Vince got rid of them. And you saw potential, you brought them in, and they were like, I'm a WWE superstar. This is what happens. Refusing creatives, not wanting to do the work, and so on and so forth. We all heard the stories. So now you're purging your locker room of these bad elements, right? You're getting rid of wrestlers who don't want to be there anymore. Why would you go ahead? Why would you not favor cohesion in the locker room and trying to rebuild the feeling that you keep telling us over and over again? Start by building it with your guys and gals. Build them with your people first. And if they have the feeling, it will come across on TV. Just like if they don't, it'll come across on TV as well. That's what they should be doing. But we'll get into the AEW releases, but just to wrap up the WWE thing, the releases, especially when it comes to AEW, look, I whatever happens. And, I hope all of these guys and gals fall on their feet, land on their feet. The expression, Warren. Hope they all land on their feet and that things go well for them. But ultimately, I don't want any of them in AEW. And if I'm Tony Khan, I'm 100% saying, thank you for the subscription. I'm 100% saying, I do not want these people in my locker room. I'm rebuilding it. We're getting rid of all the bad sentiments. Why would I try to upset this balance now? And here's the wacky thing on top of that. AEW has the stars. AEW has the talent. It has the people to elevate the company and bring it back to something that we once knew. It has everyone they need. Just needs a little oomph, a little creative. We need the week to week to be better. But it's not because they don't have the talent. Up and down the card, because they do. Up and down the card. Just have to play things right. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But there you go. That's how I feel about the WWE releases, especially as it pertains to their next steps.